Victorian era mourning customs that are out of this world. We all know Victorians were a bit eccentric, but when it comes to mourning customs, they really took the cake. From funeral portraits to coffin jewelry, the Victorians sure knew how to grieve in style. In this video, I'm going to share some of the craziest Victorian mourning customs that are out of this world. Number 5. Post-mortem photography. In the good old days of Victorian England, people loved to have their photos taken, even after they had kicked the bucket. These macabre mementos were called post-mortem photographs, and they were all the rage among the dearly departed. Professional photographers would set up shop in a studio, and the deceased would be posed in a lifelike manner, often seated or reclining in a chair. The body was dressed in its Sunday's best and groomed to look as natural as possible. Well, at least as natural as a dead person can look. In some cases, the body was propped up with supports to give the illusion of life. Post-mortem photographs were seen as a way of preserving the memory of the deceased, and they were often given to the deceased person's family and friends as a keepsake. They were also sometimes used to document the cause of death, especially in cases of accidental or violent deaths. As the years went by and the attitude towards death and mourning changed, the practice of taking post-mortem photographs fell out of favor. Nowadays, they're definitely a thing of the past, but they still make for some truly chilling and morbidly fascinating historical artifacts. Number 4. Dress to depress. Mourning clothes were considered an outward expression of a person's inner feelings. Mourning clothes for women during the Victorian era comprised every possible type of clothing: hair accessories, stationery, umbrellas, fans, and purses, just to name a few. Men's typical outfit was often merely a black hatband or gloves. The most commonly associated mourning cloth was a black silk crepe, which was nearly entirely manufactured by one company, Courtaulds. The crepe had a flat, lifeless quality. Lustrous fabrics such as fur, satin, and velvet were prohibited. Wearing bright or flattering attire was considered insensitive if not sinful. Widows were expected to mourn for 2 years and were only allowed to wear grey and lavender during the final 6 months of half mourning. After the loss of a parent or sibling, children in middle-class families were forced to wear complete back attire for a year. Girls' outfits were frequently modeled after their mother's mourning gowns. Number 3. Memento MORI. Accessorize your grief. Families frequently made souvenirs out of a loved one's hair. Yes, you heard that right. They skillfully arranged their loved one's hair in shadow boxes, wreaths, textiles, corsages, and most notably, jewelry. While women were not permitted to wear jewelry other than a black gemstone while in tense mourning, they frequently wore a jewelry reminder afterwards. Queen Victoria was known to wear a locket containing a photograph of Prince Albert as well as a lock of his hair. This may appear to be an uncommon technique, but we do something very similar, memorial or cremation jewelry right now. We deposit a portion of a loved one's ashes in jewelry and wear it in their memory instead of hair. Although this method of memorialization has evolved, the fundamental concept remains the same. If you've been enjoying this video so far, then make sure you subscribe to our channel and turn on post notifications so you can know whenever we make another epic video. Number 3. They planned for it. The Victorians were not in denial about death. Children died at a high rate, and even if you did survive childhood, many adults did not live past the age of 50. Death was so certain in this age that people cherished elaborate burial services. As a result, many families would have been saving for years to pay for a funeral ceremony. Women often fashioned their shrouds and put them in their wedding trousseau. Nowadays, we avoid discussions or even thinking about death. But in actuality, we may learn from the Victorians. It is okay to discuss and plan for death. The Victorians did not dwell on death, but accepted it as a fact of life and prepared for it. While this may seem unusual to us now, the Victorians recognized the importance of commemorating a loved one's life and honoring their memory. More openness, less fear, and a willingness to have these conversations would be helpful to many families. Number 2. They hired professional mourners. Having the most rigorous and extravagant burial service was an obligation and an unwritten rivalry among Victorian society's influential families. Professional mourners or mutes were employed to trail behind the coffin or linger nearby, looking particularly sad. Professional mourners provided dignity to the event while also allowing the grieving family to maintain the stiff image needed by tradition. Despite the Victorian emphasis on grieving, it was considered impolite to publicly cry loudly during funerals. Number 1. Superstition was the way. During this time, humanity was still learning a lot about the natural world. People believed in the supernatural and were very spiritual. As a result of this, there were a bunch of superstitions surrounding death. Victorians used to carry the deceased out of the house feet first so they couldn't look back and call for help. To prevent the deceased image from becoming trapped in a looking glass, curtains were closed and mirrors were covered until after the funeral. It was supposed that if you saw yourself in a mirror at a residence where someone had recently died, you may be next. To avoid all bad luck, all clocks were stopped at the hour of death, and somewhat creepily, Victorians turned family photographs face down to protect the family and friends from possession by a spirit of the dead. Some people believed that the dead could communicate with the living and that it was possible to hold seances to contact them. Others believed that the dead could haunt the living, either because they had unfinished business on earth or because they were angry or upset about something. Some people even believed that the dead could possess the living, taking control of their bodies and actions. One of the most well-known superstitions about the era was the belief in ghosts. Many people believed that spirits of the dead would linger on earth, manifesting as ghostly apparitions that could be seen or heard. Some people believed that these ghosts could be benign and even helpful, while others thought they could be malevolent and dangerous. Another common superstition during this time was the belief in the evil eye. It was thought that some people had the ability to cast spell on others simply by looking at them, and this would cause illness or bad luck. To protect against this evil eye, many people wore charms or talismans such as a horseshoe or a four-leaf clover to ward off evil spirits. Overall, the Victorian era was a time when people believed in superstitions and the supernatural. These beliefs often shaped their attitudes and behaviors. If you enjoyed this video, then definitely check out this video right here.